Doesn't it feel like football has never been away? Saints slumping to a 4-1 defeat to Tottenham in the opening game of the new Premier League season. A positive start, going 1-up in the game thanks to James Ward-Prowse, but then old frailties rearing their ugly head as Saints capitulated. Steve, first to you. What was your take on the whole events of Saturday?
I mean, in many ways, it was very, very predictable, wasn't it? I think the only unpredictability was that the goals that we weren't just taken apart by Harry Kane and Heung-min Son, who, I mean, Son, I think, scored 10 against us. Kane can't be far behind. And yeah, it's one thing to get beaten by a very good Tottenham team, which this Tottenham team is, let's be honest. It's another to concede goals in the way that we did, where essentially you're not giving yourself a chance. We take a lead, and yeah, everything you kind of think, okay, well, we've got ourselves a foothold in this game, got ourselves in front, and all of a sudden, just the old bad ways come out. Like there's not a single bit of effort to try and stop a ball coming into the box. So many crosses into the box yesterday. And I mean, we're playing 5 at the back. We've got literally five defenders on the pitch, plus essentially 2 holding midfielders, really, who should be shuttling across to give the fullbacks and wingbacks a little bit of support. And yet, there's nobody within 5 or 10 yards of the players that are putting these dangerous crosses into the box. If you give quality Premier League players, I mean, let's be honest, if you give mediocre Premier League players that sort of time and space, they can pick their spot. And so we shouldn't really be surprised that every time these crosses come in, we look at 6s and 7s, because any team that faces a barrage like that will struggle. And you could tell from Ralph's his various post-match duties, that he's clearly not happy, but it's kind of his job to sort this out and have a strategy to deal with it. And I mean, maybe there is a strategy and the players just aren't carrying it out in the way that he's asking them to, in which case he's got to say so, because at the moment it looks like that the system that we picked basically works until there's one bit of adversity, and then we collapse in a heap. And yeah, we're going to come up against better teams than Spurs. I mean, there aren't that many teams better than Spurs, but there are some. And I mean, good Lord, they're going to give us an absolute hiding if we don't buck our ideas up very quickly.
Looking forward to seeing Valerie marking Haaland. I just watched City a minute ago.
Good Lord.
Should be interesting. Glenn, you were at the game yesterday. I hope you managed to have a decent day out in that fantastic stadium, despite the result. How did you see it, and what was the general mood like amongst the fans in the stadium?
I think there was a lot of realism before the game. Anyone who I spoke to in the pub and on the way to the game, and I saw a couple of people I know. I got recognised as well, so TSP is officially massive. So hi, Nick.
Are you sure they didn't just think you were Ralph again?
Yeah, no, not this time. Beard's gone, so not this time. So so hi to Nick. Sorry you had to put up with my beard up swearing from the ground, but yeah, I think there was realism that we were unlikely to get a result, which turned to, oh my word, when we actually scored, because I think that was the limit of most people's ambition in there, was to get a goal, and so to go in front was good, but it was not. It was never one of those, okay, we're now going to go on and win this. Spurs were a little bit disjointed for the first 10 minutes, and fair play, we scored. It's a good cross by Djenepo. That was good. Good goal. But you could just see we were getting torn apart, especially down the flanks, and unsurprisingly, especially down Djenepo's flank, because they had Kulusevski and Emerson Royal, who were just allowed to do whatever they wanted down there. And Djenepo was trying his best, but he ain't a fullback, and he's been thrown to the wolves by Ralph there, and he had no chance. I don't really blame Djenepo, but it kind of, when it went to 4-1, the mood kind of changed, and it was, my God, are we going to get out of here without getting absolutely smashed. And Tottenham took their foot off the gas. But in truth, we were miles off it. You don't want to go in too hard because at the end of the day, as Steve said, it's a very good side away from home first game. But there wasn't a lot there that was encouraging. And I found the team selection completely bizarre. I found the substitutions bizarre. I don't know what Ralph was doing. I think the 5 substitutes has given him more license to overthink things. I just didn't get it. Wrong players selected from the start. And if you start a game, you've got 10 outfield players, and 4 of them are Valerie, Bednarek, Gineppo, and Adam Armstrong. That's 4 who ain't good enough. So if you've got 4 out of your 10 outfield players who ain't good enough, you're going up against a team like Spurs. Is it any wonder that you're going to get smashed? Now, Gineppo, I know we're short of fullback and we've got injuries and stuff, so he probably didn't have a lot of choice there. But, I mean, why did Bella-Kotchap not play? He's been, whenever we've played anything like the first choice lineup in a friendly, he's been in there. So why wasn't he playing? Jack Stevens come on at half-time. Why was Valerie picked to start? He's done well pre-season, but it just illustrated again that pre-season is no barometer for who can do well. But when the real games start, so it was kind of mystifying. And at the end, I think everyone was just pleased to have only got beat 4-1, and back to the pub and wait for the next game against Leeds. But I'm a bit concerned having seen the lack of anything really. It didn't seem to be much of a structure, certainly defensively, and going forward we had absolutely nothing in the second half in particular. So it's a little bit worrying going into Leeds, which of course it's not results against Tottenham that are going to define our season. It's results against the other 13, and Leeds at home is going to be a big barometer of where we are or where we aren't.
Yeah, we'll come on to some of the team selection issues in a second. Alfie, we've seen it all so many times, haven't we? Like we've touched on, Saints score, and it was after that almost like only one team was playing the game, and that definitely wasn't Saints, was it?
Yeah, it did feel like that a little bit, especially in the second half. I think, to be fair to Ralph, I know Glen's mentioned the team selection, but I think he tried to reward the players that he thought had played well in pre-season. But Glen's absolutely right. Pre-season is clearly not a barometer for measuring performance, certainly not against a team like Tottenham. But the thing that frustrated me, I think, most was, one, is the headers. Again, every single game is the headers. They cannot win a header, it seems like, for love nor money. They get beaten every time. And secondly, it's the players that were good 4 months ago are now suddenly unable to play football to a decent standard. And I think it's a real shame that Mohamed Salisu, as one example, has fallen off in the way that he has. I don't know if it's confidence or if he just feels like he's being stretched playing next to Jan Bednarek. And I agree with Glen as well. The substitutions, although I've defended the team selection there, I was left confused by what I saw at halftime. Perhaps not the striker change, but certainly to leave Bella-Kotchap on the bench. And it doesn't give that much confidence going forward. We've seen it all before. It was so similar to Leicester, the last game of last season, and I felt that's the thing they really had to avoid, was just starting off on the same foot again, and they've done exactly that.
Yeah, but let's really get into this formation and team selection issue then. The first game saw a repeat of pre-season, and it'll be set up with 5 at the back again. Starting 11 saw 3 summer signings making their debuts. Gabin Bazunu got the nod ahead of Alex McCarthy. Romeo Lavia played as the holding midfielder, and Joe Aribo played pretty much up front, it seemed, for most of the game. 2 subs at half-time, and Adam Armstrong coming off meant we played the whole second half without an out-and-out striker, with Che Adams failing to get any minutes. Steve, did that surprise you?
Yeah, most of that was fairly surprising, I think. I think we all called Bazunu being first choice. I don't think there's a huge amount of shock or particular sadness with that. I think that was a good pick based on what we've seen pre-season. He looks very solid and made some good saves yesterday. Couldn't do anything about the 4 goals. So yeah, no problem there. The rest of the side, yeah, Gineppo possibly has to play in that position if Perraud's not able to play a sizable amount of the game yet. I mean, he's only played fleetingly in pre-season, so we assume the 20 minutes he got is probably what he's capable of at the moment, maybe 45 at the most. But yeah, some of the other changes, Valerie, I mean, as Glenn said, Bella-Kotchap's been playing all through pre-season, and yet all of a sudden he's behind Jack Stephens, who's barely featured at all. I mean, what's that substitution about? No idea. Again, the second half-time sub, Stuart Armstrong coming on for Adam Armstrong. I mean, I don't really know what the thinking is, other than, I mean, are we packing the midfield? Are we playing with Stuart Armstrong and Joe Aribo up front, who are kind of, I mean, they're both kind of attack-minded midfielders, but they're not forwards, and so you're already behind in the game, and yet you've given yourself kind of less attacking threat, and obviously the change didn't work because 8 minutes later we conceded another 2 goals. So yeah, there's a lot of weirdness in those changes. I mean, why bring Carl Walker-Peters off in the last minute for Redmond? I mean, really, what's the point? So yeah, successful weekend all round, lads. It's just...
Yeah, Glenn, we're playing 5 at the back to be harder to beat, and yet again we shipped 4 goals. I mean, something isn't right there, is it? How does it sit with you?
Well, it's just, going back to I know I went off topic a little bit earlier on, but you've got 5 defenders. 3 of them are Djenepo, Bednarek and Valerie. What do you expect? What do you expect? We know those 3 aren't good enough. Ralph knows those 3 aren't good enough. And then he comes out in his press conference and says, we didn't defend well. These players made individual mistakes. Well, yeah, you picked them. You picked them. Could have picked Lianco, could have picked Bella-Kotchap. I mean, Lianco wasn't even in the squad. And to me, he's the only defender we've got who's got a bit of grunt about him. And he wouldn't have let Harry Kane have the free ride that Bednarek did all game. Harry Kane would have come off. Oh, did I just play football for 90 minutes? As a centre half, that is absolutely insulting that you didn't even smash into him and get booked even once. There was just nothing from the defence. There was no aggression in it, and as Steve said earlier, the defending from the wings, stopping cross, or not even attempting to stop crosses coming into the box. But then we compounded it by not picking up the player in the middle as well. Now, these are just football basics. These are nothing to do with tactics. These are just basics. Try and stop the cross, mark the men in the middle. It's what you're taught when you're 8. Don't make it easy for the strikers. Don't make it easy for them to score goals. And again, as Steve said, we just did not make it difficult for Spurs to score a goal. They'll score goals anyway. You've got to make them feel like, that they've earned it. And it was so easy. To me, that's the only positive from the game, is that Spurs will think they're better than they are, because they're going to come up against much, much tougher teams than us. It was just so easy for them to score, and you cannot defend like that. It was just awful.
Yeah, Alfie, I mean, one of the key areas, that everyone agreed that we needed to strengthen in the summer was the defence, and, in particular at centre-back as well. And yes, we brought Bella-Kotchap in, and we were surprised that he didn't feature at all, really. Yet, we turn up to the first game of the season, and it's pretty much the same personnel. So how can you expect different results? I mean, I think that's the definition of insanity, isn't it?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It was something that I actually pondered, sort of putting out and tweeting yesterday and just asking people's opinions, but I didn't want to be too scathing after just one game of the season. But it does feel a little bit like, you say, Jack Stephens, Jan Valerie play, Jan Bednarek still in the team, Moussa Djenepo's playing left wing back, which, if anything, is a regression from where they finished last season. And it's like we spent 6 weeks of the transfer window saying, well, this is going okay so far. Comes to day one of the season, and actually they look worse than they did when they finished. And I wonder if that's one of the biggest failings, of the window so far. There's still time to sort it, and I think there's a massive wake-up call. It needs to be sorted, but I can't understand where Amel Bella-Kotchap was, or why he was left on the bench, and I certainly can't understand how Jack Stephens, who's played very little time in pre-season, was all of a sudden preferred. I can only presume that Amel had taken a knock, but it didn't actually come up in his press conference. But it's something we'll have to ask him on Thursday.
Mark Richards gives us a little message and says, anyone got any theories as to why Salisu's form has gone off a cliff? He's certainly not the player he was, is he, Steve?
No. And I think, is part of it based on the reported transfer interest back in January? After that Man City game where we drew 1-1 and he got man of the match and everyone was singing his praises, has kind of the attention possibly got to his head a little bit, and he kind of thinks, right, I've made it now. I don't need to continue putting in the effort to improve, possibly. Who knows? It doesn't. Let's be honest. It doesn't help that he's playing alongside the people he's playing alongside. Because you could stick Virgil van Dijk in our back 3, 4, 5, however many we're putting out this week, and it would be an absolute train wreck. Because there's just no cohesion, there's no organisation between those other defenders. And yeah, as the guys have already said, Jack Stephens, why is he suddenly in from the cold when, for 3 years we've known he's not good enough. He's fine for a stopgap for the occasional game if you need to bring on an extra body, but that wasn't the situation at half time. And as you say, Lianco was. He's made some mistakes. He's not been perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but yeah, he's the guy that's going to be kind of sort of saber rattling a little bit at the back. He's the one that's going to kick someone up in the air and kind of hopefully sort of get a reaction from people. And yeah, nowhere to be seen. Also, so yeah, I just don't know quite how we've got to this situation where 2 weeks ago we kind of thought we had a plan, and a week ago actually it was looking vaguely passable against two good overseas opponents, and yet we've kind of ripped up a fair amount of that blueprint in the last 7 days, and basically decided, no, it's fine. What the garbage we served up at Brentford last season and at Leicester last season in those last couple of weeks is exactly what we need to start to start a new season and get everyone on in a real positive frame of mind again.
Glenn, would you agree with that? To fix the defensive issue, we need to recruit. There's not a combination there that would work. What's your thoughts?
I don't like to say all the time because we're not Manchester United. If you look at Manchester United Twitter, it's all about we need to sign him, we need to sign him, we need to sign him. We're not really like that. So the way we've got to find an edge is through coaching, and it's through using the players that haven't yet proved that they're not good enough. So if you're going to pick a back three out of the players we've got, Salisu is interesting. I thought he actually started the game reasonably well yesterday. First half, he wasn't bad. And the second half, he fell to bits, culminating in that brilliant own goal, which was just special beyond belief how he did that. So I thought Salisu actually started the game reasonably well. But, maybe Salisu, Lianco, Bella-Kotchap, that's a bit more of a combination of height, strength, someone who's going to get stuck in. Because that was the problem for me. We were just so passive. Let Tottenham have the ball. There was. Did anyone get booked? I don't think anyone did.
No.
And Andre Mariner. He was very lenient. There was a couple of naughty challenges by Tottenham that he let go.
That Romero one on Romeo was pretty wild.
Yeah. It was like a scissor tackle, wasn't it? Mm. And Kyle Walker-Peters copped a bad one as well from Sessegnon, I think. The sort of one that would have got sent off with VAR when they first brought it in, sort of like shin high. But we didn't put a tackle in. Even Oriol Romeo just seemed to wander around lost. Now normally when the defence is not playing well, it's because they're coming under too much pressure from the midfield, not doing their job properly. But I actually thought, we'll maybe talk about this in a minute. The positives. Romeo Lavia was brilliant. He was just absolutely outstanding in an incredibly mediocre performance. I think he was decent. Ward-Prowse was decent. Oriol Romeo looked completely lost. I don't think he really I don't think he put a tackle in all game. I don't think he really got involved in any attacking play. So I don't think it was the midfield that was the problem. It just seemed to be a lack of will to defend. Do the basics, do the dirty stuff, and I don't. And as Steve touched on, Bazunu had a decent game. He didn't have a chance at any of the goals. And as a goalkeeper, you've got no hope if there are unmarked players 6 yards in front of you with a free header. So I think it was purely down to, all five of them were culpable at some stage, some more than others. And you've just got to, whoever's coaching the defence has just got to drill. This is what we do. This is what you do in a back three. And they've just got to get stuck in more and make it harder for teams to score goals against us.
Alfie, Glen mentioned the coaching there. We've got new coaches at the club. The club were pretty swift with what they did in the coaching department at the beginning of the summer, weren't they? And you'd like to think they'd be helping Ralph, behind the scenes with some fresh ideas when it comes to maybe the defensive side of things. Have you heard much about how the new coaches have been received by the squad? And do you think they could be key in that?
It did look a little bit like the sort of pre-season had been not wasted, but it hadn't quite been up to scratch because they looked unprepared against a Tottenham team that were ready to cook, if you will. But in terms of the coach, I know that Carl Martin is someone who's particularly popular in the group. He obviously spent a year with that team, who are most of the same players 2 years ago. But in terms of Ruben Sellers and Alex Clapham, it probably will take a while to get their ideas across. I know that I think that Alex has got a particularly difficult job if he's trying to organise them for set pieces, because last season they weren't very organised for set pieces at all. You don't learn that overnight. And I think, I hope that it will come, and I have confidence that it will come as well, but I don't think it's going to be a quick job.
Okay. Let's look at the forward side of things, Steve.
This won't take long.
Well, I've seen rumours over the last 24 hours of Callum Hudson-Odoi potentially coming in on loan as a possibility. Do you think that would help?
Yes, he's a good player and he's better than what we already have. How he fits into the system that we're, if you can even call it a system, what we played yesterday, but the system the system that we're theoretically trying to play. I don't quite see how he fits there. I think our old sort of traditional, Ralph's traditional 4-2-2-2 probably suits him better. And maybe once we get through this fairly horrible run of early fixtures, then maybe we go back to something that will give us a bit more attacking impetus. Hudson-Odoi is a good player.
He is.
There's a very good reason why Bayern Munich were happy to spend 30 or 40 million quid on him, and there's a good reason why Chelsea said no and tied him down to a new long-term contract. He's a good player. He's better than what we've got, and if we're able to get him, then great. But he's not the only body we need in an attacking sense, because we're not looking like we're a serious threat. Obviously we took the lead yesterday, and it was a well worked goal and really well done. But we can't rely on Ward-Prowse scoring all the goals for us. There's a lot of players in that team that need to contribute, and Adam Armstrong may be a solution. He may not be, but I don't think isolating him and leaving him up top on his own is going to be the answer. I think Aribo I think he's probably better suited to coming from slightly deeper. So as a result, you probably need a centre forward who is happy to play either on the shoulder or with his back to goal, ideally a bit of both. I suspect that Adam Armstrong probably isn't that player. Shay Adams kind of fits the bill a bit more, but not a clue what's going on there at the moment. It just seems that Ralph just doesn't rate him. But you look at his record. It's better than the players he's picking.
Yeah.
It's one of those where, we don't see what goes on behind closed doors in training. Then maybe Adam Armstrong's pinging them in left, right, and centre, and Shay Adam can't hit a cow's ass with a banjo. But it's from the outside, it doesn't look particularly logical at the moment.
No.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we should, there's still a few weeks left of the transfer window, so hopefully the club are, trying to bring in some fresh recruits up top. But your thoughts, Glenn, because if you're playing Stuart Armstrong and Joe Aribo up front, it would indicate that Ralph doesn't really have much confidence in what he's got up top in Adams and Armstrong. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it would indicate that. Joe Aribo is not a striker, regardless of how much we're trying to cram him into being one at the moment. He's not a striker. He's not quick enough. End of story. He's just, and to leave him isolated up front. I mean, he's a very good player. I mean, he did really well to get. He got a shot away when we were 4-1 down that Lloris made a good save, and he pushed it along the 6-yard line, and we didn't have another player within 20 yards. Spurs had 4 in the penalty area to clear the ball, and we had no one. Next closest player was Perrault, who was out on the left wing. So that tells you about our attacking intent in the second half. Stuart Armstrong, I think he started sort of leftish, and then he went up front, and then he went rightish, and he looked kind of fed up, and it was almost like he was being given a different instruction every 5 minutes about where to play. It was bizarre, and the second half the attacking was just non-existent really. So, I mean, I don't think we're going to score enough goals unless we play with 2 out-and-out strikers, really. So if we're going to play 5 at the back, 3 in midfield, it's got to be 2 strikers who are a goal threat. I think Aribo would probably be better suited to playing in a midfield 3 along with, Lavia and Ward-Prowse, or maybe Stuart Armstrong could play there. And we need 2 strikers, really, Che Adams and the striker that we're going to sign this week, whoever that is. But, Che Adams is not perfect, but he's the best striker we've got. So why he's not playing is totally beyond me. Adam Armstrong, I want him to do well, but I just don't see it. I just don't see it. He had a really good chance. It wasn't put on the match of the day highlights. He had a decent chance when we were 1-0 up. Ball bounced to him on the edge of the box, and it was one of those ones where he did his usual in that he smashed it and shanked it, and it went wide. Now, if that had flown in somehow, we'd have been 2-0 up. And that in a game like that, that's what you need your striker to be doing, to have one chance and score. And I just don't think Adam Armstrong is that man, unfortunately. I'm not writing him off, but at the moment I just can't see it. So we do need, Sekou Mara is obviously not going to be ready to start games yet. So, we need an experienced player. But that's the problem. I mean, at the other end of the pitch, I see Connor Cody wants to transfer. He'd be absolutely ideal for us, but that's not going to happen.
Can't move?
Yeah, can't move, but he can organise, and that's that's part of what we need. But up front, we've got similar problems. We've got, for me, our attacking players gradually gone downhill since 2016 when Graziano Pella left. We had a little bit of a resurgence when Danny Ings was there because he was such a good player with clever movement and stuff like that. But we have struggled in the main. We've just looked very, very stodgy. And at the moment, the attacking options are as bad as they've been, I think.
Yeah. Chris Beaver agrees with you on the comments. Says if Adam Armstrong is the answer, I have no idea what the question is. Sam says Aribo is not at all a natural striker. Why is he being played there? It beggars belief. It's now vital to get natural strikers and wingers into the side. We can't keep playing players out of position, says Sam. Alfie, I'm going to try and chase you for an exclusive. How is the transfer situation with Saints? Where are we at? Are we close to getting any enforcements in up front, or have you heard of anything?
I wish I could tell you yes, but no, I think it's probably going to be a case of waiting maybe even another week longer. Hopefully I'm wrong. The players that they want are the ones who aren't available right now because they're waiting for bigger moves or they're waiting for a bumper contract somewhere. And when they don't get that, then they come to Southampton and they come for an exciting project, hopefully. I wish I could give you an exclusive there, but I cannot.
Okay, never mind. I tried, everyone. We just have to wait and see what happens with that one. Just before we move on to looking ahead to Leeds, just want to quickly go around and talk about some positives from yesterday. Some positives from you, Steve. I mean, I know who you're going to say. First name is Romeo, second name Lavia.
Yep, he was very good. Very, very impressive display given obviously his complete lack of top level experience and his age, and obviously the complete shambles that was around him. Him and Bazunu, and I guess Ward-Prowse was reasonably solid. Yeah, other than that, not a huge amount to write home about, other than, well, we didn't ship 7, I suppose. So yeah, I mean, Spurs basically declaring at 4-1 was quite handy. I suspect they were probably quite happy with half an hour in the sun just strolling around, really.
Similar story for you, Glenn?
Yeah, Lavia was excellent, as I said. I thought Gavin Bazunu was good. Let's say didn't have a chance with the goals, and for a 20-year-old playing his first Premier League game, I thought he did well. I think a positive that came out of the game is, it could be dressed as a negative, but it showed us that we're nowhere near. You can't think everything is all right when you've been smashed like that. Spurs, we all know they've got better players than us, but they had more fight, more will to win. They smashed into tackles. They were fitter. They ran harder ahead of the ball, and they knew how to attack. They showed us what we need. Obviously, we're not going to have as good a players as they've got, but they showed the way that you win football matches, or you at least have a chance of winning football matches. And we've got to take the positives. This is bizarre, but we've got to take the positives from getting beaten like we did, which is they showed us the basics that you need to do in order to win matches. And if we don't do those, we are in serious trouble. And they showed us the way. So I kind of see that as a positive, and hopefully it's given Ralph a way forward with regards to players and team selection. But we shall wait and see.
Would you echo those positives as well, Alfie, before we move on?
Absolutely, yeah. I think Glenn hit the nail on the head in terms of Gavin Bazunu and Romeo Lavia. The fact that they're very good players, and particularly Romeo, a supremely calm player for his age. I think it's 2 players that are better than they were in the team last year. Yeah, we'll see how it goes for the rest of the window.